I wanted to ask you if you have any understanding or thoughts about what made you different so that you wanted to go away and do things. You wanted to go to college, and then you went to Washington, and you ended up in Alaska and going all over the world.
Honey,
None of our families did
I
that.
don't know. I don't honestly know. You know, I grew up like all the other
Yeah.
kids around, like Joyce Mooney's right up the road here, and Helen, and Aunt Zora, Aunt Ruth, Helen Walker.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Helen Walker. You know, she played the piano very,
Yeah.
very well. So
Well,
she got it
so it
somehow.
was just in you
I
to
don't
have
know.
this
I
little
have-
wandering spirit?
I really was not a very tractable child. That's the truth. I sort of had a wild spirit.
An
then.
independence.
Yeah,
all
independent
along.
spirit.
Yeah.
But some of it I earned, but some of it I didn't. But this is just too much. But you know, I graduated from high school when I was 14.
No, I didn't know that.
And then I went to Kernersville for a year because Daddy went down to women's college. And they said, we're not in the babysitting business. We will not take her. And so I rode with a teacher to Kernersville. And Salem was the next because I couldn't ride. I could get a ride.
Oh, okay.
There was a guy who was working at the tobacco company up there, and he said that I could ride with him. He was a good friend of my daddy, you know, and he played baseball. But anyway, that's the reason I went to Salem, is because I could get a ride. And do you know, I only went 2 years, but you see, I had been to Kernersville 1 year, so I had taken bookkeeping, so
Okay.
I was a good bookkeeper. I could have been a CPA if I had wanted to, but that's the reason. That's where I got places. But Mom and Daddy worked so hard to give me the opportunities. Well, then Sam went to Oak Ridge. See, Oak Ridge Military at that time was a junior college.
My daddy went there too. Tom went
Right,
there too.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, so that in Zora and Paul and Rex and all these people, Uncle John, Uncle Hugh. So when he got ready to go to High Point, well, you know, he had it.
Yeah.
But, you know, Aunt Zora went there. And Aunt Zora went there in 1925. And she had a ring from Oak Ridge, 1925. And she gave it to Billy. And Billy gave it to me. And I gave it to the museum at Oak Ridge.
Really?
And they have it in a lovely little box, Zora Dillon, 1925.
Fantastic.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that is.
Marie?
I wanted to go back to where she graduated.
Well, I want to go back, yeah.
Okay.
Was it unusual for people to graduate at 14, or what led up to that?
Well, Mama had been on to the 7th grade over in Pine Grove, but she knew everything I knew in the 1st grade. And the teacher there said, there is no reason, I knew all the multiplications, I knew everything, you know. There is no need for her to go to the 2nd grade. So I went to the 3rd grade. Well, I kept getting good grades, and I worked hard at it. And then along the time they said, in the 4th grade, they said, you know everything that's in the 5th grade. So I skipped the 5th grade. It wasn't a good idea. They don't do it much anymore. They don't do it at all. So when I graduated, socially, I was completely inept. I didn't know anything, you know.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. But when I went to Kernersville, you know who was my best friend at Kernersville? Was John Vance.
Oh,
Really?
really?
We were sweethearts. We never went together any place except I rode on the front of his bicycle.
Oh, okay.
He rode me up and down there on the front of his bicycle. He was my friend till he died. In fact, I went to his funeral. And, but there, I mean, you know, it just came easy. Learning came easily to me. But I worked at it. I mean, it didn't just happen. I
What
really worked
school?
at it.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Just so I have the name. When you say Kernersville, what was the name? Was it Kernersville what? I mean, what was the name of the school?
Was it a college or Kernersville High School or
Kernersville High School.
Kernersville High School?
That's her dad.
Yeah, on the road to
I know, but she said you
Kernersville High
graduated.
School.
Well, what school did you go to? Just the name of it before you went to Kernersville
Oak Ridge and Summerfield.
and Summerfield.
See,
That's
Oak
where
Ridge,
Billy went.
Oak Ridge only went to the 9th grade.
Right.
Then I went to Summerfield,
Okay.
and that's where I graduated. And then they would not let me go into
They said you were too young to go to women's college.
right. And so I don't know who suggested it. I had people all along who were helping, who were making decisions. It wasn't under, some of the people at Oak Ridge, you know.
Okay.
Some of the teachers said, Marie she can't stop now. She's got to do something. And there was a teacher at Oak Ridge who drove, with whom I rode every day to Kernersville School. She was a teacher at Kernersville. And so that's another reason where I was just lucky, you
Right,
know.
right.
How would I have gone to Kernersville otherwise?
Right. Right.
And then
What grade was she in?
this is
Yeah.
This is hard to tell you, but after the second year at Salem, a woman came down and talked to Daddy. They said, "We want to give Maria a scholarship." No member of my family is going to accept a scholarship. I can't afford it, but she just said, I didn't know
Did he
any
think-
better. I didn't know any better.
Did he think it was charity?
Yes.
Yeah.
He said, we do not accept charity.
But it wasn't. It was because you were smart. And they
Yes.
have scholarships for smart
Yes.
people to help
I
them
said,
go on.
she tried to tell him. I remember sitting on the front porch and he said, that's charity and we do not accept charity. You know that in the Bible, it was a sin to accept charity. It was not a sin, it was a disgrace.
Yes.
It was a disgrace to accept charity.
Well, how did you feel about it? I know how your dad felt about it, but how did you feel about charity? You didn't think it was charity, did you?
I didn't know. I just listened to my daddy. Yet no, the word charity was a no-no in our family. It was a no-no, you know.
All of our ancestors
Yeah,
were very proud.
yeah,
Very proud.
yeah.
people.
I think it was pride as much as anything else, you know.
It was.
Yeah, and maybe she didn't call it charity. She just said, we want her, we need her, so we can. But to Daddy, it was charity, and he just wouldn't accept it. And I never said anything to him about it. I didn't know. I didn't know till years later that I could have gone on. But in World War II, I went immediately to Washington.
No, why?
And then-
how did that happen? Okay, the war happened, and what did you do?
I went to the recruiting office
So
and
you showed up
the
there.
next day.
Okay.
So you
and
had a
I-
little adventure in you, right?
Yes.
Or was it? I thought you did.
Yeah.
And were you?
Mama said, "Why are you have a good job?" I worked for the Royal Typewriter Company, and I had one of the best jobs in Greensboro, and what's the same? And the owner there, he said, "Marie, we need you. We need you." I was doing the bookkeeping. Please don't go. No, I gotta go. And so I went over and took the examination, and I missed one question, and that's a question I had been using all the time, recapitulate.
Oh,
And I'd been doing recap on my bookkeeping
Right,
all the time.
right.
And I think it was the 3rd day of January, I was in Washington.
and were you a WAC?
No,
No. That's
No.
what you talked about
I-
WACs earlier.
no. I took the examination,
Oh, that's right.
made the highest score in Washington, but it was for that operation was for officers, and they had so many PhDs, you know. And so by the time, then they said, well, you can apply the next time for private.
Yeah.
By that time, I didn't. I had a better job. The job that I had with these 5 generals to recruit civilians was probably the best job in Washington.
Do you remember all of their names, the generals? You mentioned one
No,
earlier.
no, the one I remember, I can say the red memory was Fechet, F-E-C-H-E-T. He was a major general, and he was, I'm sure, 90 years old. I don't know, but he had fought the Indians. You know,
This was
in
December 41, right?
well,
Right after Pearl Harbor.
yeah.
So when you were in Washington, what was the atmosphere like?
Do you know that I was there and met Jimmy Doodle when he returned from
The bombing raid?
from Japan.
Right.
He was the biggest thing in Washington, you know.
So you met him?
Oh yes, oh yes.
What was he like?
The nicest gentleman, just a gentleman, you know. And he wasn't proud or big or anything. And do you know that later on, my husband Don knew him well in St. Louis. Yeah, so we both had a, but I don't know why I went, Ellen. I had to be first.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
always it. Even in school, I had to be first. I couldn't.
So you
It's
were-
not a good plan. It's not a
Seems to
good
have worked
plan.
Okay for you.
So you went to Washington. Then,
And I stayed there several months, and then they opened an office in the old Pilot building on High Point Road. You know where that big building is?
Yeah.
They sent the 9th Army down there, and they needed secretaries. And so they sent me down there. And I stayed there for, I'm sure, a year. And then the 9th Battalion, or whatever it was moved to St. Louis. And they said, we want as many of the secretaries as will go. And I went as the general secretary, you know, to St. Louis. And in 44, about mid-44, he was sent to England,
The general.
the general. And he said, I want to take Marie with me. They said, not unless she is in uniform. And I said, well, I think it's too late for me to go be in uniform. Where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Alaska.
Why Alaska?
So I was posted to Alaska.
But why did you want to go to Alaska, Marie?
I don't know. Donnie, it just sounded as far away as I could get, you know. It just, you know, Alaska was so
Exotic.
exciting.
Okay. So, yeah.
So I went to Alaska. And, oh, Mom and Dad, they didn't know what to do with me. They really didn't. They really didn't know what to do with me.
When you look back upon life during your prime, how do you compare that to the world today? And for good or for worse?
Well, I hate to say it after listening as little as I can to the politics, that it's worse, because patriotism was a good thing then, Donnie. I'm not, now, they just degrade it. They just demean patriotism. And succeeding was a good thing. Now, you'll get by, or, go on the roll or something. Well, it never would have occurred to me to ask for anything. David and I talk about this often. We're just glad that we're at the end. Now, we really are. We don't want to. He said, I'm not even sure I'll vote this year. He's a staunch Democrat. And I don't know, and of course we were all Democrats. But he says, there's nobody. We don't have any statesmen. We don't have any, the statesmen won't run. They're too smart. They're too smart. There's no, who, David and I don't know. So I just hate to listen. And all of these, those kids running in the Republicans, they've never been anywhere, they've never done anything, they've never been in a war, they've never seen wars.
What message would you give to kids today in terms of being a patriot, and what responsibility would they have?
I don't know. Once in a while Dad talks, and but I think the people are ready to spend the last dollar they have today, They're not thinking ahead to save something, to build a little, to build a nest egg. It's just not the thing today. It's spend what you have and the government will take care of you. I don't know, Donnie, that's very poor answer, and I don't know what my answer would be. As I say, I'm just glad that I'm through that. My one thing is, why in the world is the United States trying to be the savior for the world? We should look after ourselves. The Chinese have been there millions of years. The Russians have been there. All of those little countries that get, they think we're the God for them. And we need to look after our own people. And David and I say this every day. Why do we try to police the world? If they want to fight each other, let them fight each other. Yeah. But we've got to go in and we've got to police. You see, David was in Iran. He was in Vietnam. He was in Taiwan. He was in North Africa. He was in Germany. He was in England. All of these places, and he says, except for Vietnam, he thought we were doing the correct job there. But I'm not really knowledgeable enough or fluent enough to tell you exactly how I feel.
I think you did a good job.
Yeah, you did fine.
And Marie, thank you so much.